Hello and welcome to this very special session for the Festival of Discovery. I'm really pleased to be talking to Stephen and Anita Mangan, brother and sister duo, who earlier this year published their first children's book. Hello, Stephen. Hello, Anita.
Hello.
Perhaps we could begin with Stephen, you just telling us something about the book, just a short, very, very short synopsis of what it's about.
The book is about two children, Jack and Callie. Jack goes bungee jumping by mistake at a fairground, and he ends up plummeting through the earth into a strange, weird and wonderful world where he meets Callie, and they have to solve a series of puzzles and riddles and challenges. They meet all sorts of weird and crazy people. They have to try and work out why the two of them are there. So it's a sort of adventure story. It's a funny story. It's full of puzzles. Yeah, I think that just about covers it.
Anita, your great illustrations are in the book. And how did it come about that you ended up doing the illustration?
Well, Stephen and I came up with the idea together to do a book. So he couldn't ditch me, for another illustrator once he'd written the story. So the characters were quite easy to draw because Stephen's words just described them to me immediately. And being brother and sister, we just sort of get each other's humour. So it was fun doing the illustrations. The weirder and more wonderful, the better, basically.
Well, she's got really good lawyers. I tried very hard to wrestle the project off her, but she just took me to court. No, we always wanted to do something together. And in fact, originally my idea was to do a picture book for a younger set of readers. But Anita said, no, she doesn't want to do that. She wants me to write a 50,000 word novel. So that's, I do what I'm told, so that's what happened.
And can you remember, you said you always wanted to do something together, but can you remember how the kind of seed of that idea ever emerged in the first place?
I suppose Anita's been illustrating for a long time, and I've always loved the stuff she's done. The thing that had to happen was for me to take the leap into becoming a writer, because obviously I'm normally an actor. That's my day job. So once I decided I was going to give writing a go, and once a publisher liked the idea I had, there was just no question it would be Anita. When you have an illustrator sister, it'd be quite a tough call to ring her up and go, yeah, I'm writing a book, I've got an illustrator, it's not you. As Anita said, our sensibilities really match. We laugh at the same things, we get the same references. There was just no one else on the planet who could translate my weird brain ideas onto paper like Anita could. So it had to be the two of us.
You talked there, both of you, about how you've got this symbiotic, obviously relationship from being brother and sister. Was it always happy clappy, or did you ever kind of come to blows? But how did you ever have to sort out differences of opinion about the process, or was it a completely smooth process?
I think it was annoyingly smooth, wasn't it? There's no gossip on this. It, not annoyingly smooth. It was wonderfully smooth because, like Stephen describes it, sometimes we both work in our own lanes. Like he's the writer and I'm the illustrator, and his words conjured up an image for me that Stephen then said he couldn't imagine that. But for me, it's all about the images just came to me. And he liked them. I think there might have been one or two drawings where he said, "Oh, this person hasn't got a jacket on," or read it properly. But mostly it was fine, wasn't it, Stephen? I even got us in there.
Yeah, we're in the book. We're in the drawings of us. It was. It's annoying for an interview not to have stories where one of us has thrown the entire contents of the living room out of a window in fury, but it was very smooth sailing. As I'm an actor, so I'm used to taking someone else's work and interpreting it with my performance. And what's exciting is think of a character and describe a character, sometimes in really quite vivid detail, but then be surprised and delighted because someone else's imagination is made to work on that. And you get two sets of brains and creative minds working on something. So Anita was constantly adding little funny bits or touching bits or stuff that I hadn't thought of. And actually, you're also a very good proofreader, Anita, because I would be getting emails saying, on page 7, you say that this character has a pocket on the right-hand side of their jacket. And then on page 92, you say the jacket has no pockets.
Can I also add at this point that Stephen writes about characters that have about 16 or 17 elements to their outfits, and I just sort of see him writing it thinking, okay, what else can I write here now? So Anita has to draw this. It's for one particular woman who's wearing.
Well, shall I read that bit out?
Yeah, read that bit out.
Just... I partly wrote this chuckling to myself, thinking Anita's going to have to draw this at some point. This is a character called Wonderful. Wanda looked extraordinary. Her hair was tied up using pink and orange balloons, the kind used by people who make balloon animals. Over her mouth was a surgical mask, which had a massive mouth painted on it, much bigger than Wanda's actual mouth and slightly off-center. Her jacket had 2 huge lapels made of stiff brown leather, extending wider than her body. There was a chainmail belt around her torso, a cape with a picture of 2 llamas eating waffles over the words Waffle House, a pink tutu, bloomers, and the lower part of her legs were wrapped in bandages.
Over to you, Anita.
Yeah, draw that.
Thanks.
There it is. You can see that.
And she's got a duck on her lead as well, who's also wearing a cape.
So how, just in terms of the process then, how did it work? Did you put all the words down first then, Stephen, and then hand them over to Anita? Was that how it went?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's my first book I've written, so I was shocked actually at how long the process takes. Firstly, I was filming The Split for the BBC, and I was filming Portrait Artists for Sky, so I was quite busy on other projects, so I would snatch, but over a series of several months I wrote a first draft, which I think I showed to you, Anita. I think I showed you every step of the way, but then huge bits of the story would be taken away and reworked or completely cut, so Anita couldn't really start working on it until we were close to being happy with where the manuscript was. So that took quite a long time, but I did keep sending stuff to Anita, just so if anything did get cut eventually, she could kind of see where the character had maybe come from and get more of an idea of the thought process that I'd gone through in order to create that character. But you had to read quite a lot of stuff, didn't you?
I think you know, for me, I had some time for the main characters. They took time to develop, so I did lots of sketches for them. And once we were happy with them, all the other kind of other smaller characters that kind of happened on the last draft. Once that had been written, then the publisher works out where we need an illustration, and then I added double that because I just thought, oh, we could have another little picture here. Why not add something else here? Why not? At one point, Stephen said, "It's about the words too, Anita." It's like, calm down with the pictures.
Just you gave that short synopsis at the beginning, Stephen. But where did the inspiration for the story come from? Did it just spring into your head one morning, or had it been something you were mulling over for a while?
The beginning of the book was based on something that happened to our other sister, Lisa, who's the youngest of the family, the youngest of the 3 of us. She had gone on a bungee jump in somewhere like Cirencester, I think, at a fair. And she told us the story of being taken up by 2 blokes in this crane. And as they were going up, they kept looking at her harness around her legs and whispering to each other and pointing at it. And she was like, what, is it okay? And they were like, no, it's fine. And then they whispered to each other and pointed it again. So she was getting more and more paranoid. And she got to the top, and a bungee jump, I mean, if you've ever done one, you sort of just put your arms out straight and you just start to fall forward until eventually you go head first down. And just as she got to the point of no return, one of the guys shouted, "No, wait!" she was like, "What?" all the way down. They did it just to wind her up, to try and make it more exciting, as if a bungee jump needs to be any more exciting. I mean, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. So that stayed with me, and I had this idea of someone falling from a bungee jump and just going straight through the ground. And I actually thought it might be a really great start to a film. You know, I could see the camera behind the person as he fell forward, and you know, it could be a very dramatic plot and what's gone on, and then the titles come up, and I hadn't really thought much past that. But that idea had been in my head for years, actually, just that little scene. So when I sat down to write a book, I thought that would be an exciting start to a book. So if someone did go through the earth, where did they, and you know, and survive, you know, where did they go? Later I realized that's a very similar beginning to Alice in Wonderland. You know, she goes down the little rabbit hole into another strange and wonderful world and meets all these creatures. My hero Jack falls out through a bungee jump and into another world, but you know, no one said I had to be original. Lewis Carroll didn't use any bungee jumps.
Also, Lewis Carroll wasn't around to sue you either.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Were you prolific readers as kids? Were the children's books around the home? And if so, can you remember which books you were fond of or that you really liked or inspired you? Anita?
Stephen was definitely the reader. I was more the sort of staring out the window person, which I realise now is, you know, why I like observing and drawing and art. But I did love the Roald Dahl books. They just took my imagination away. Not took it away, increased my imagination. It was all about ladybird books, and you know, if we're going back really far, you know, like the Magic Porridge Pot, they were quite terrifying, some of the illustrations, and actually children's books were quite terrifying. But Stephen read all day long. Over to you, Stephen.
Actually, I read a lot. I mean, even read at dinner. I don't know how I got away with that. There was 5 in our family, and I would just sit there with a book by the side of me. We had these sort of benches we would eat on, and yeah, I just read constantly. What was I into? Yeah, Roald Dahl, obviously. The first thing I remember being massively into were the Enid Blyton books, which I'm not necessarily massively in favour anymore, but just the idea of children going off and having adventures on their own. And you know, she wrote so many of those Secret 7 books and Famous 5 books. You know, it's the sort of equivalent of a box set binge, isn't it? Now I just read hundreds of them. Adrian Mole when I was 13, Sue Townsend. I mean, I'm pretty much the same age as Adrian Mole, so I thought that was an incredible book. I just love books that I have a low boredom threshold, and I just anything that kept your attention, and rewarded your attention was what I wanted. So when I came to write books, I wanted very much to have as much humor and as much drama. I get very annoyed in acting when people say, "Oh, the separation of films and plays and books into comedy and drama." The best stuff is both, always. Hamlet's a really funny play. The Norman Conquest I did as an Alan Ayckbourn, you know, that's a very funny and very moving. So all the best stuff to me has both elements. So I knew when I wrote a book, I wanted it to be funny, and I wanted it to be moving, and I wanted it to be fast paced, and I wanted the children to be in charge. So yeah, that all came from the books I read as a child.
So, and what's the reaction to the book? It's not been, I mean, it came out this year, but it's not been out a long time. And have you been surprised, Anita? Were you surprised by the response and excited by it, or how's it gone since
it's been amazing. It's been a #1 bestseller on an online bookshop for a long time since it came out. We've had some fantastic comments. The best ones are from the kids, when, you know, or parents sending us photos of their kids, saying, you know, my child doesn't like reading, but she's just engrossed in this book, won't put it down. I can't get her to bed. Thanks very much. You know, it's just incredible. It's the response is so brilliant. And, you know, as a debut as well, you just don't know. You like, we're putting ourselves out there. Obviously, I've illustrated before, but this is our first children's book together. It's such a fantastic response. How's it been for you, Stephen?
Yeah, amazing. Like you said, the thing that really is more exciting than anything is to get those emails or Twitter messages from people saying my son or daughter doesn't particularly like reading, but they or they used to read and they stopped, and now this book is, and they do send pictures of their kids and people copying Anita's art or copying the cover and sending that in. That's incredible to get, really, that kind of response, because that's all you can ask for, is that because it's written for 8 to 12-year-old children, so their response is the one that matters, really. And I've been overwhelmed by how well it's gone down out there.
I just observe one thing that's great is that, and by the way, I'm holding up the book now, last fashion, but Escape the Rooms. But it's given the children spend so long on electronic devices these days, and yet, we probably all agree that a book is a wonderful thing, and that anything, I think, that encourages kids to actually read and to pick up a book and to enter a different world. It's got to be a fantastic thing, hasn't it? You said there, Anita, this is our first children's book. I suppose the obvious question following that is, will there be others in the pipeline? Have you got any other ideas that you think, that would make a good second book or something?
Well, there is another book in the pipeline. It has been announced. It's not, well, Stephen, you talk about it because it's your concept, but it's not a follow-on. It's a new.
No, unfortunately, it's called The Fart That Changed the World. And it's basically the hero of the first book is Jack, who my youngest son is called Jack. And I've made him the hero of my book, which is not very fair on my other two boys. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to write at least 2 more books. And Frank, who's the hero of this next book, who's our middle child, is not over the moon that his book is called The Fart That Changed the World. But I wanted to write a story about how small actions can have huge repercussions, and I think it's especially true of children who might feel that they have no impact on the world, that their actions aren't important. And it's very pertinent to the whole Eden Project thing, how small acts can influence the world and other people in ways you just will never know. So that's where we are. So yeah, I'm writing that at the moment.
Is Frank responsible for that fart?
No. The king is responsible. Frank doesn't fart, so no. Yeah, so he's spared that ignominy.
All right.
King.
You mentioned the Eden Project there, and as I said at the beginning, this is part of the Eden Project's Festival of Discovery. When this goes out, COP26 will have taken place. It's interesting that there are all these floods and rain, and Glasgow's being in a deluge at the moment. But what will you hope the COP might have done, and what are your own personal observations on this kind of massive challenge of protecting the world and saving the environment?
Well, the problem we have is that politicians tend to think as far as their next election, and this is a problem that needs some long-term solutions. So I hope that they will see that the financial cost of doing nothing or not doing enough is going to be catastrophic, let alone the environmental impact. I hope that they will be stringent in the agreements they come to, and take some sort of firm measures. Unfortunately, I'm a bit cynical about it because we've been let down so often in the past. I think, the fart that changed the world, small acts can have big implications. It's important for all of us to keep the pressure on our MPs, to keep the pressure on the people who are making these decisions, and to do what we can ourselves. I think we are, to be optimistic. Children nowadays have been brought up with a much greater understanding of the environment and the dangers it faces. I mean, we were never taught any of that stuff when we grew up 406 years ago. So yeah, you only have to turn on the news, as you say, Kevin. There's so much catastrophic weather events happening just seemingly on a weekly basis around the world. Things need to be, so fingers crossed that things are moved on.
Let's hope so. I was just going to say, Anita, because with your children, and Stephen mentioned kids there, are they kind of conscious of the whole need to recycle and do good things and protect the world? Is it something that this young generation, far more than us, is attuned to? Have you observed that through your children?
Yeah, so I have a 14-year-old son who's more kind of, into his video games and just getting taller, but and they are much more aware, and I don't know if they're worried about it, but it's just because it's in the news all the time, and people like Greta Thunberg and at the forefront of the kind of kids revolution, but I think also we're constantly saying that small things can make a big difference, that we all have to play a part in it, and like keeping the pressure up on the government is definitely important because they'll make the most impact, but we can also do our own little bit, can't we, to help things. And it's just keeping it at the forefront of your minds, and kids are useful for us to keep that message out there.
Well, I think it's great the work that the Eden Project do in this area. I was just wondering, Stephen, looking at the colour of your hair, I just wondered if it was it the shock of Tottenham nearly losing Harry Kane that made you go white, or is there some other explanation related to your professional life?
I do a show called Portrait Artist of the Year on Sky Arts, and we filmed at the Eden Project, actually, the landscape this summer. We filmed at the Eden Project for a few days, and I worked with Dame Joan Bakewell, who is well into her 80s and looks younger and younger every year. So I think I'm like the portrait of Dorian Gray in the attic. I'm getting older as she gets younger. That's working with her that's causing me to look like this. I'm actually playing Scrooge at the Old Vic this winter, so that's why they've bleached my hair white, and I've grown this beard, which is freaking my children out. Every time I wake them up in the morning, I have to go, "It's Daddy coming into the room." The first thing they see is a stranger.
So in case anyone missed that, time to book your tickets for Christmas Carol at the Old Vic and see Stephen as Scrooge. I'd just like to say thank you very much. This is going to go out as part of the Festival Discovery, and it's been brilliant having a chat to you both.
Thanks,
you too. Thank you.
I just wonder, Stephen, if before we do finish, if you'd be happy to just read us a section of the book, which I'm sure your followers and the young readers would love to hear.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Here we go. This is from the beginning of the book. It's our hero Jack has gone bungee jumping, and he's done it. He doesn't quite know why he's doing this bungee jump, but he's just leapt off the top of a huge crane with a rope attached to his legs. The ground rushed towards him, and it looked like there might be no way he could stop in time. Was this the thrill of it? Was this why people did it? Feeling you were going to hit the ground, and then at the last moment, phew, saved. The rope would tighten, he'd slow to a brief stop and be thrown into reverse, back up into the sky, and it would all be over. Any moment now. Now? Oh no. Arrow straight, arms and fingers extended, body vertical, mouth open, Jack hit solid ground at high speed and went right through it with a small, muffled plop, like dropping a bowling ball into a vat of jelly. The ground folded around him and swallowed him up. There was no trace of any impact, no sign that the earth had been disturbed. The only clue as to what had happened was the tight, quivering, elastic rope coming out of the ground, connected to the cage far above. That was not how Jack had thought his evening was going to pan out.